I welcome you to this press conference and thank you for turning out in such numbers despite the very short notice. The purpose of this afternoon's exercise is to give you a brief update on where we are at the moment and to tell you a little bit about how the Commission of Enquiry proposes to proceed as we go forward. As you're all aware, most of you already in far greater detail than we are at the moment, this Commission of Enquiry arises out of the tragic incident which took place at Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, Pointe-à-Pierre, on 25th February 2022, which resulted in 4 divers engaged to LMCS Limited losing their lives. This was, by any measure, a tragedy of major proportions, and we would like to extend our own words of sympathy and sorrow to the deceased divers' families, who must even now be still in a state of grief and pure incomprehension as to what has happened. In addition, there is naturally intense public interest in ascertaining, firstly, as closely as possible, exactly what happened on the 25th of February. Secondly, identifying the causes of the tragedy. And 3, ensuring that appropriate steps are taken to ensure that there is no recurrence. To this end, Mr. Wilson and I were this morning sworn in as commissioners and given our instruments of appointment by Her Excellency Ms. Christine Kangaloo, the acting President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We are very grateful to Her Excellency for accommodating us at such short notice. And I am personally honored and privileged to be associated in the discharge of this duty with Mr. Wilson, who is himself a former commercial diver and currently a subsea specialist of great experience and renown. In order to define the scope of our inquiry, we have been provided with detailed terms of reference, copies of which I believe you should all now have. And in order to help us in the conduct of the inquiry, we have already enjoyed the great advantage of being guided by the expert advice of Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maraj, Senior Counsel, who will function, as he will explain to you in a moment, as counsel to the Commission. Mr. Maraj, I am rather inclined to think, needs no further introduction to this audience. I will ask Mr. Maraj to tell you something about the role of counsel to the Commission, as well as to give a brief outline of some of the steps which it will be necessary for us to take in fulfillment of our obligations under the terms of reference. And I think you will understand that as commissioners who are tasked with the duty of doing some fact-finding and forming views and making recommendation, neither Mr. Wilson nor I would want to say too much about the actual contents or merits of whatever contentions may come before us at this stage. But we can say that in the conduct of the inquiry, we intend to be as inclusive as possible with regard to the evidence we will hear and consider, bearing in mind in particular the overarching duties of fidelity to the facts and fairness to all who may be affected by such conclusions as we may reach in due course. But at the same time, it will be necessary to manage the process in such a way as to ensure that the Commission of Enquiry can be completed within a reasonable time. On that note, we know that the question of how long all of this will take is probably uppermost in everyone's minds. However, we are sure that, as you will appreciate, this is not a process to be rushed at the expense of a proper inquiry. So, please be patient with us. The first order of business after we have completed the evidence gathering phase, about which Mr. Maraj will tell you some more, will be to convene a procedural hearing. And I wish to make it clear at the outset that what I describe as a procedural hearing is not a hearing of the merits or otherwise of the entire subject matter of the inquiry. It is a hearing at which we will have an opportunity to assess the volume of material which we will by then have in hand, determine issues of legal representation and the like, and fix a final timetable for the actual hearing of the evidence. And I will say this again because I don't want to be misunderstood. I am not promising a procedural hearing as a final hearing of the dispute within a fixed time frame at this stage. But we are hopeful that we will be able, provided that we are able to gather in the evidence in short order, to fix the procedural hearing for some time in August of this year. But please, that is not cast in stone. It's a timetable, a target that we are setting ourselves. But the fulfillment of that target is heavily dependent on the other inputs, which is to say the persons who will come forward and the assistance that we get from the Secretariat to make sure that we get all the material in hand. Now, in terms of next steps, we have been advised that Cabinet has now approved the appointment of a secretary to the Commission. And after today, we intend to turn over the business of keeping the public informed of our progress to the Secretariat, and we fully expect that you will be kept up to date by that means. And on that note, and subject to any questions you may have at the end of all of this, I will now invite Mr. Maraj to say something to you about the legal underpinnings of the Commission of Enquiry, the function of counsel to the Commission, and the various steps that will have to be taken to enable us to produce in due course a report that we hope will be of benefit to all who seek some closure to this tragic incident, and hopefully recommendations that allow us to look forward to a future in which this kind of incident does not happen again. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon to all of you, members of the media, and those who are listening. The Honorable Justice Cecil Dennis Morrison, Mr. Gregory Wilson, and members of the media, may I first join in expressing condolences to the families of the deceased who have been unfortunate in having died at these tragic incidents. Since 25th February this year, after 4 employees of LMCS Limited lost their lives whilst they were engaged in underwater maritime exercises at facilities owned by Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, there have been a lot of public discussions in the country about the circumstances surrounding their deaths. Many questions have been asked about the tragic deaths, and some of those questions ask for answers to the following issues. What went wrong to cause their deaths? Whether their deaths could have been avoided? Whether the 4 persons who lost their lives could have been rescued? Whether there were persons or entities responsible for their deaths? Could these incidents happen again in the future? How could tragic incidents like these be prevented from happening again? whether there would be accountability for any person or entity that may have been responsible for these tragic deaths. Members of the media, companies in the private sector, citizens, and social media commentators are some of the persons and organizations who have all weighed in on those and other questions surrounding the circumstances of these deaths. On the 3rd of March 2022, the Minister of Energy announced the appointment of a committee of 5 members to investigate this Paria incident in response to the public disquiet which arose from the circumstances surrounding these deaths. When the government announced that committee, it was to comprise 5 persons, but following that announcement of that committee, of the appointment of that committee, there were public allegations made of conflict of interest, government cover-up, alleged bias against a specific member of the committee, and that such an inquiry would not be fair and impartial. The criticisms also include that this committee did not have full investigative powers to compel evidence and to produce documents. The Prime Minister announced on the 8th of March that a commission of inquiry would be appointed to inquire into the circumstances leading up to and surrounding these tragic deaths of these 4 divers. The Commission of Inquiry, as you now know, is headed by a very distinguished Caribbean judge, Mr. Justice Cecil Dennis Morrison, and a very experienced and a distinguished subsea specialist, Mr. Gregory Wilson. The government also announced that a representative from a specialist international investigative firm with experience in conducting investigations into industrial incidents would be provided to the Commission for the Commission to get assistance if it requires advice on technical issues. The terms of reference of the Commission specifies the scope of the inquiry and what events or actions for the Commission to investigate. The terms of reference address the fundamental issues which cause the inquiry to be initiated. It is important to understand that a commission of inquiry does not begin with the Commission having public sittings to hear evidence. The Commission begins its work by conducting investigations in order to gather the relevant evidence in the context of the terms of reference. This must be done by the Commission before it can hold public hearings. The evidence must be assembled, and after it is assembled, it is then presented to the Commission by witnesses who would give evidence before the Commission and be subjected to cross-examination. At this pre-hearing stage, the work of the Commission is geared to reviewing the evidence that has been accumulated, and then it decides what evidence is relevant in the context of the terms of reference and what witness ought to be called to give evidence. Witness statements of those witnesses would have to be prepared for the witness to give evidence at the hearing before the Commission. The task of the Commission is to uncover the facts in the context of the terms of reference, and after those facts are presented to the Commission then makes determination on the facts presented to it. The first stage of the Commission, therefore, is for the Commission, in accordance with the terms of the reference, as I said, to assemble the evidence, make a decision on what evidence is relevant to the terms of reference, and have the witnesses prepare witness statements. This pre-hearing and investigative stage of the Commission, therefore, is critical for the Commission to discharge its responsibilities properly. This investigative stage is critical because the information and documents and any other evidence obtained and which has to be adduced before the Commission would in effect be the lifeblood of the inquiry. If this stage of the investigation is not done properly, the hearing stage of the inquiry would not be effective in order for the Commission to discharge its full responsibilities to uncover the facts and find the facts. The approach of the Commission to get this evidence would include the following. The Commission would have attached to it a Secretariat headed by the Secretary of the Commission. There would be investigators, and the investigators, together with the administrative staff at the Secretariat, would assist the Commission in obtaining relevant evidence. Secondly, the Commission would direct the Secretariat to publish notices and advertisements inviting persons who have relevant evidence to submit their statements to the Commission. The Commission would then consider their statements and determine whether they are relevant and those witnesses which are to be called before the Commission. Letters will also be issued to persons and entities who would have relevant information and evidence about these tragic incidents. Such entities would include, from the facts that we have, would include Paria-LMCS, and the Coast Guard. Those letters would invite these persons and entities to submit the evidence relating to this matter, and the Commission would also consider that evidence and determine what evidence to be led at the hearing. Counsel assisting the Commission would assist the Commission in all of these exercises in order to accumulate all the relevant evidence. Counsel to the Commission would have a managerial role in relation to the investigations, the assembly of the evidence, and its presentation to the Commissioners at the hearing. Counsel to the Commission, however, would always be subject to the direction of the Commissioners. I should inform you that under the Commission of Enquiry Act of Trinidad and Tobago, the laws give to the Commissioners the power, if necessary, to compel the attendance of witnesses and to compel the production of documents, so that the Commission of Enquiry has the power to enforce witnesses, to give evidence, and to enforce the production of documents. None of the lawyers, I should mention this, none of the lawyers on my team are from any government ministry. They're independent lawyers in private practice. Our job includes getting the witness statements from those who have first-hand knowledge of what has happened, to assemble the documentary and other evidence, and if necessary, to get expert evidence from experts in the field. We then present all of this evidence to the Commissioners to assess the evidence and make their findings and submit their report. Now, there are lots of misconceptions of this Commission of Enquiry, its purpose and how it works and what results will it will actually achieve. And I just mentioned two. Some say that the Commission of Enquiry will take a long time. It will cost millions of taxpayers' dollars. But I think all of us would agree that it is important for the facts surrounding these tragic deaths be fully investigated so that the public would know the truth and the facts, what happened. And I think you will also agree with me that any report presented in this matter would obviously be influential for government which makes policy to decide exactly what the next step is. So I do not think that the argument that it's taking a long time, or it will take a long time, or it will cost some money, should outweigh the value that this Commission of Enquiry would have. The other misconception is that the Commission of Enquiry would not be independent and objective. Now, this commission is headed by a very distinguished judge. The chairman of this commission in 1994 was appointed a Queen's Counsel. In 2008, he was a judge of the Court of Appeal of Jamaica. He then became the president of the Court of Appeal of Jamaica. He became a judge of the Court of Appeal of Belize. He became a judge also of the Court of Appeal of the Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal. And he is also a judge of the Court of Appeal in the Cayman Islands and a judge of the Court of Appeal in Turks and Caicos. So we are talking about a distinguished judge. Would anyone really reasonably believe that this commission would not be independent and impartial? The next member of the next commissioner is a person who is very experienced in the. He's very experienced. He's graduated from the College of Oceaneering in California in 1997 to begin his career in Trinidad and Tobago as a lead diver specializing in underwater inspection methods. He has extensive subsea experience in the subsea industry, and he has knowledge and experience in offshore and onshore commercial operations and HSE capacities. Mr. Wilson has worked in the oil and gas industry for many years and has in-depth knowledge and experience of the subsea and subsea construction industry. Mr. Wilson was also the first president of the Association of Commercial Divers in Trinidad and Tobago. I wish to assure you, as counsel to the Commission, and I wish to assure Trinidad and Tobago, I would do everything within my power to get all the relevant evidence to be presented to the Commission of Inquiry. And I, as counsel to the Commission, I would discharge those duties independently and impartially and fearlessly. Thank you very much. We can invite questions from the media.
CNC3. Good afternoon, Jesse Ramley from CNC3 News. I think one of the most burning questions is going to be, when will the inquiry actually begin? I know there's the gathering of evidence and information that you would have mentioned, but is there a tentative date that you guys have identified as to when it will commence?
And the answer to that is no. As Council has started to explain, there are a number of steps to be taken before the actual public hearings. And while we would love to be in a position to say that they will begin on such and such a date, it would actually be quite irresponsible of us to do that yet. So hence my cry to be a little patient with us. We have to take it step by step by step. And once we've gotten to that stage, it will be released to the public.
Good evening, Terry Ann Brown Campbell from TTT News. This incident has generated a lot of comment. Has there been, and there's been a lot of letters in the media, etc., etc. Has there been anything set up to receive documents from members of the public even before they started, or is it from this point forward?
This is a starting point. As I indicated, my fellow commissioner and I were given our instruments of appointment this morning. So that although we have been aware for a few weeks that this appointment was imminent, we actually had any legal authority to take any of the steps which Mr. Ranch has outlined. So the clock starts now, I should say. And while we appreciate that the level of public comment that has been out there since February, and that's after about 3 months ago, we are where we are. So this is where we're starting.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Jensen Laven from Newsday. Have you all identified a place for the Commission of Inquiry to be held as yet?
We were told yesterday, and I don't want to be more definite than this about it, and you will forgive part of my handicap is that I'm not from these parts, as they say. But we were told yesterday that there is a space which has been identified which may be suitable for actual public hearings to take place and for the Secretariat to be located. I don't know if you know, Ramesh. I don't think any of...
Yes, I know where.
You know, Ramesh, may know where.
So, Mr.
It is the, it says at the upper floor of the old office of the Attorney General, which is very suitable and equipped for such a hearing, but we have not seen it, and we have been invited to have a site visit of it.
And when will this site visit be?
Well, we will arrange. The Secretary was only appointed yesterday, so we will take steps to have that done very quickly.
And who is the Secretary?
One Ms. Sinanan, who is attached to the Ministry of the Attorney General. She's a lawyer. She's an attorney at law.
And I'm assuming she would pick the members of her team to make up the Secretariat. I'm assuming that she would pick the members of her team to make up the Secretariat.
Yeah, she'll be responsible.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, both commissioners, you have been aware of your incoming appointment for some time. What, if anything, have you done to shield yourselves from the information in the public domain so as to not to, even now, influence any decision going forward?
Well, speaking for myself, I am only aware from the regional media of the incident itself and what has been reported in the newspapers. I certainly have formed no view at all on it. I just don't have any material to allow me to form any view, and I come to it with an open book. You will see sitting in front of me here a very big ring binder, which I believe is the first of many to come. I was presented with this by counsel to the Commission about 2 hours ago. Naturally, I haven't had a chance to delve into it yet. So, really, as I've indicated, the clock starts to run now.
Well, good afternoon all. Sorry. Good afternoon all. Pretty much reiterating what the chairman says. My action in terms of suitable investigative practices, I tend to come to this as an open book, not with any biases. I try to stay away a lot from what was in media, so as I wouldn't have any sort of information bias or have an anchor bias. But again, I'm going into this with the investigative practices that's in industry. We usually just remain an open book and willing to hear these stories. Yep.
Mr. Maraj touched on it a bit in terms of the criticisms that was leveled against the Commission of Inquiry. One of them being that this entire thing, and Mr. Maraj, you didn't touch on this, that this is a complete, or will be, a complete waste of time. And this came from an attorney that was on previous Commission of Inquiries. How would you respond to that?
Well, throughout the entire Commonwealth and even outside of the Commonwealth, wherever there are matters which there is public disquiet and public condemnation and raises important issues, governments, one of the regular machinery which is used is to appoint public inquiries, is to have public inquiries. Because the only way that allegations which are made can be assessed properly is for the evidence, the facts to be presented, and for people to be able to get an opportunity to present the facts to an adjudicative tribunal. And what is happening with this Commission of Inquiry, all the allegations which are being made, the public would have an opportunity, they would be able to see the hearing, they'll be able to assess for themselves. Persons who make allegations and against one side or the other, they will have cross-examination. So it will be open and transparent, and therefore I think the public would be able to judge for themselves whether the findings of this inquiry meets this evidence which was presented to it. So I think that the Commission of Inquiry is one of the important tools for a government when there are circumstances like this. As Attorney General, when I was Attorney General, under my tenure, there was a Commission of Inquiry, and the Commission of Inquiry was into the administration of justice. There were recommendations, and some of those recommendations have been implemented. I know that the argument is that in a lot of the Commission of Inquiry report, governments normally do not implement some of the recommendations. But I think that when you look at it as a whole, the public would have got good education from some of those commissions of inquiry, and the government would, and the governments over the years have at least implemented some of those recommendations.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Urvashi from TV6 News. I'd like to just ask, I skimmed through the terms of reference. I saw LMCS as well as Paria named, but I was kind of curious if the role of rescue agencies would also be incorporated in your investigation.
The terms of reference mentions rescue.
Okay, I may have missed that.
It mentions rescue. I'm trying to find my copy. It deals with that as part of the. If you look at.
Well, number 7 does speak to the prevention of these incidents and to the rescue of the 5 LMCS divers. But as it relates to the actual rescue agencies and their role in the matter.
Well, if you look at paragraph 13, it says to examine all other material circumstances leading up to and surrounding the incident which took place and so on, so that led to the tragic deaths. Is there the fact that you do not mention specifically rescue agencies, if it's dealing with the rescue which was effected, it will be incidental.
Included? Okay, fair enough.
So it will cover it will cover that.
Okay. As it relates, and now I know you said that there's no timeline yet for the start of the hearings and so on, but of course, I read in a previous newspaper article that within 6 months the report is to be submitted to the president. Does that 6-month period still hold? Do you suspect that there will be completion within 6 months of today's date?
If I remember correctly, it was 6 months from the first date of hearing.
Okay.
Of the Commission of Inquiry.
Okay, so that's that. The question of legal, if the state would be providing legal representation for the families during the Commission of Inquiry, that question was in fact posed to the Prime Minister, who said that he will refer to the recommendations of you all, the commissioners. Has that? Well, I know you all just started, but will that be a point of consideration?
And I think the answer is that no, we have not been able to consider that. In due course, as we proceed, we expect that we might, in fact, hear or be given some request for that. It is not ultimately a matter for us. It is obviously a matter for the state. If asked, we will certainly proffer a view, which is that it might be considered suitable to provide such representation, but I emphasize that it's completely outside of our remit.
Gotcha. So this incident happened in February. 2 months later, is it of concern to the Commission that the integrity of evidence or even the availability of evidence may have been impacted, quote unquote, covered up, unavailable now, 2 months later?
I think we will obviously scrutinize all the evidence very carefully. If there is any allegation that what you describe has happened, we will certainly take that into account. We will consider the circumstances described, and we will weigh it all in the balance in coming to a decision. So we will be alive to it. I think, though, that 3 months is not, in fact, as long as it may seem to the families and to others who are interested, an inordinate period. In the very nature of things, cases in court and so on, it is often impossible to get things going before a little time has passed because of all the moving parts that have to be put in place and coordinated. So yes, all of that will come into the mix if it is alleged.
Can I ask Mr. Wilson's perspective, because we're talking about appliances that would be under the sea, beyond the eyesight of most of us? His thoughts on the integrity of the evidence?
Well, thanks for the question. I think all of that can and will be ventilated under the terms of reference. It is a framework in which we work, and I think it would be enough to ventilate that and bring to the fore any sort of weaknesses there. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Maraj did speak about, mistrust, and I mean, we feel that we hear it in the media all the time, the sense of skepticism around this particular commission of inquiry, particularly because it relates to a state agency. And
I'm sorry, because it relates to?
Paria being a state company, there's this sense, will a commission of inquiry who is being remunerated by the state really rule against Paria, which is a state company? So I would have to ask, just to make sure that none of you gentlemen have any relationships with Paria, with government, or with any political party.
I am not involved in any politics. I am doing this on behalf of the state of Trinidad and Tobago. I took this appointment because I believe I have a duty to assist the state, and the state is totally different to any political party. The people constitute the state in effect. So therefore, in my view, I am acting on behalf of the state. I am basically like the lawyer for the people of Trinidad and Tobago in this inquiry. And I'll leave it. Yes.
Yeah, well, I can say that I have no connection with Paria. I have no connection with the government of Trinidad and Tobago, save to the extent that I've been asked to do this. And as I indicated in answer to one question earlier, as far as I am aware, I come to this exercise with a completely open mind.
Same here. I'm not affiliated with any political party. I'm not affiliated with Paria or any state agency in any form. My interest in this is to bring an answer to the families, of course, and to the nation. So, no affiliation.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
I should explain one thing about a commission of inquiry. The fact that a government of the day is providing the infrastructure, the resources, or the finance, it doesn't mean that the commission of inquiry is a tool of any government, because the commissioners are independent and impartial, completely detached from the politics. They are in effect judges. Counsel to the commission is like it's not a prosecutor, but it's one who assists the commission to get all the evidence. So that I would like the public to understand that, because it could be misunderstood that because the government provides the resources, but the government provides the resources for the judiciary also, for the magistracy, for the DPP's office. So it doesn't, that is the duty of the executive arm of the state. So that shouldn't really affect the public perception that this is going to be any tool of any government.
Yeah, and I might only add to that with which I agree entirely. that in the conduct of the inquiry, the Commission will be completely insulated from any influence by government. I don't think any responsible government would attempt to do it, and even if it were to be attempted, I can speak without hesitation for my colleague in saying that we will regard ourselves as completely independent of any such influence.
One of the commissioners was supposed to be an expert in undersea investigative, so that you all would have access to that type of knowledge. Is that still being pursued, and do you all think that that is something that is definitely needed?
Well, the actual composition of the commission is not a matter for us. We have seen from the record that the original intention was to get such a person to be a third commissioner. But we are now constituted, as the law permits us to be, as two commissioners. We would expect that in due course we would have that kind of expertise made available to us by way of expert witness material for our assessment, and certainly when we come to assess the kind of evidence that we have in hand, as Mr. Raj has indicated, we have powers to also bring in material that we think we need to hear. So I can assure you that anything that is relevant to the terms of reference will be sought by us.
Mr. Morrison, I believe it was you who spoke, or it could have been Mr. Maharaj, forgive me if I have it wrong, of the third entity in the commission being an international body that you will be seeking expert advice from. Have you all identified this international body?
I actually think that's the same question I just tried to answer.
Well, more or less. There was supposed to have been somebody selected specifically, and then they said, no, you will look for an international body. So I wanted to find out if you all found that particular body, that person, or you would be still looking as it
and the answer is, certainly from our point of view, is no, we don't know that.
And my final question, Mr. Morrison, have you led any other commission? I came in a tad bit late, so I don't know if you said it any early. Have you led any other commission in the past, and if so, what were they? Or have you been on any other commission of inquiries before?
Yes, I actually have led a commission of inquiry in my native country, in Jamaica, several years ago. I nearly forgot it when you asked. So long ago it was. It was an inquiry into the conduct of private practice by doctors engaged in the public service, and that was many years ago. In this country, I was a member of an inquiry which was convened some 15 years ago. Now, I think that was 2007, into the question of whether the then Chief Justice should be removed from office. I was not the chairman, I was a member. And over the course of a long time in practice, I have actually acted in a role in which Mr. Maharaj is acting today, in particular in the Bahamas. Some years ago, I was counsel to the Commission in a commission of inquiry involving an allegation of misconduct on the part of members of the Bahamas Defense Force. So I have a little experience, but everything, of course, is new. And I would have to say that I have certainly never been involved in a commission of inquiry having to do with the loss of life at sea of commercial divers.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Down in the corner here. Can you tell me, is this a case where, in this particular Paria case, is there any other case like it that happened in the region that you're going to take precedence from? I mean, I know your skills of gathering is good. It's probably the best. But is there a reference point that you can look back to? If not in the region, I guess Mr. Wilson studied in LA, he may have had a similar?
I will yield to Mr. Wilson. I know of it. I know of none.
Well, no, this is the first incident of this nature in this region, and I could even dare say it's probably the first, if not one of a few, globally. But I've never read or witnessed anything with the number of fatalities in this one incident. So no, it's nothing else like this ever happened in the region. No.
I think we're going to cap these questions. Yeah.
Following up on that question, given that you all are more or less pioneers, is there any additional stress that you are now feeling?
It mostly started this afternoon. No, I'm just joking. But obviously, we take this very seriously, and to that extent, it's not. It's something that has its own inherent stresses, and we take it seriously. That's all I would like to say. I think we may have time after that for one more question.
Yeah.
No? And,
You could thank them.
yeah, all right. And you promised us your last one about 2 questions ago. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to the technical team for the work they've done to facilitate this at very short notice. And I'm sure that as things progress, you will hear from us some more.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is TTT. Live for local.